Hello, ladies and gentlemen of Mr. Escock's Life Science 7A. We've been working on adaptations on evolution, and you guys just got done playing a game where you had wolves and bunnies, and they said about adaptations that might help. Well, bunnies need to be brown when it's summertime, and some of the bunnies turn white in the wintertime. Those are adaptations. Some of the wolves had bigger teeth. Some of the bunnies developed bigger teeth to help protect them. So we're going to talk a little bit about Darwin's theories today, and then how the environment can drive evolution. Your homework will be read 108 to 109, and then the review 109 will pop up in the classroom. So there's 5 pictures coming up. The answers for these 5 pictures are Darwin's principle. So you have overproduction, too many organisms, competition, fighting between organisms, variation, changes between organisms, survival of the fittest, meaning the stronger ones are going to survive. And then the last one is evolution of species. So each one of these pictures is going to represent one of them. Your job is to figure out which one. Here we have thousands of tadpoles. Well, if you have thousands of tadpoles, will all of those tadpoles survive? No. So this one's going to be overproduction. Here we have dairy cows. Now, dairy cows are all different colors of black and white, but they're all different spots. So they all have little differences. Those little differences are what we call variation. Here you have 2 bucks fighting. Now, there's probably a doe somewhere, and they're getting ready to the mating season. And they're going to fight because in the wild, only the strongest bucks breed the does. So that is survival of the fittest. This is a picture of Darwin's finches. Now, we believe that the first finch probably got there as a pair, and then they bred and evolved into different species. So this is evolution of species. Each one of these finches has a different beak used for different types of food. And then here is our lions taking down a water buffalo. Now, a pack of lions are not going to attack the biggest, strongest water buffalo. They're going to take the weakest one. Water buffaloes are really big, really mean, and really dangerous, so they take the weakest one and prune it from the herd. It's actually good for the herd because the weaker ones are pruned out of the herd and the stronger ones survive. So this one is survival of the fittest. How does the environment affect natural selection? So all organisms have a certain amount of living space needed for them to survive. Sometimes we supplement that, like when they're tame or domesticated animals, by bringing them food or bringing them water. But most wild animals have to have a certain amount of space to find all of their needs. Your living space is dictated by the area that you cover. So a bear covers a really, really large living space, whereas a mushroom needs a much smaller living space. Within that living space, members of the same community are always competing for the resources. So that if they need sunlight, you have to fight for sunlight. If it's water, it could be nutrients in the soil. If it's an animal, it might be fighting for mates. The stronger or the best adapted organisms will survive. The weaker or less adapted organisms are going to perish. Unfortunately, we as humans have changed so many organisms' living space. Some organisms are becoming extinct or have become extinct because of overhunting, like the Steller sea cow, the dodo bird, the carrier pigeon, are all extinct because we basically hunted them to death. There was a type of eastern elk that lived in Pennsylvania, not the elk that we have here now. Those are actually transplanted Rocky Mountain elk, but the eastern elk was actually hunted to extinction. We've changed habitats. We've drained swamps in Florida all over the place. In fact, Disneyland should be one giant swamp, but we drained all of the water out and made it the happiest place on earth and basically killed all of the wildlife that should be there. Now, some organisms are learning to deal with how human interaction works. Bears and raccoons are learning to feed out of garbage dumpsters and things like that. But it's really not good for the bear to learn to get food out of a dumpster, because if it has to be trapped out and sent back to the wild, they may not know how to find food. Pollution from humans is really affecting the earth. As we go through the earth, we're noticing that we are changing not only the climate of the earth, but we've had different toxic chemicals released that have caused problems. One of those is the peppered moth in England. In the 1900s in England, they burned coal for everything. They burned so much coal that these white barked trees actually turned dark gray. So a moth that was mostly white on a black background stood out, and the birds basically ate them. Well, there was a mutation, and some of the moths turned to this dark color. Well, they actually survived, and for about 50 years, the white ones kept decreasing, the dark ones kept increasing because they were better camouflaged. Once we started going through the getting the cleaner burning factories and natural gas and other types of things are scrubbing out the pollution, the trees came back to white, and today the peppered moth is back to its original color. Extinction is the disappearance of all members of a species. The dodo birds in the Caribbean islands, they were hunted, and we also think that maybe pigs ate all of their eggs off the ground. Carrier pigeons now. Endangered is different than extinct. Endangered means it's close to being extinct. The Asian tigers, your snow leopards are endangered. There are lots of laws to protect endangered species, like the grizzly bear. The bald eagle has actually been removed from the endangered lists. Now it says it's in your book, but it's actually been moved down to just threatened. Overfishing has caused a great decline in the amount of fish in our oceans. They used to net them and do all kinds of things, and they had uncontrolled fishing. And today, fish catches are highly regulated. If you've ever watched Wicked Tuna on TV, they're allowed like one fish every couple of days now, where they used to be allowed 4 or 5 a day of these giant bluefin tuna. And that's to make sure that those bluefin tuna are there for future generations to share. I know that crabs in the Chesapeake Bay, you're only allowed to keep the males. Well, you throw the females back, they keep having babies, and then you keep reproducing, and then you can have more crabs. I used to live there in Maryland, and man, crab fishing was huge, but they were really good to eat too. So, final thing here, 3 ways humans have changed environments and caused organisms to adapt. Well, we've destroyed their habitats. We've caused pollution. We've caused the environment to change by global warming, like the polar bears are having to adapt to the polar ice shelf breaking apart. We have overhunted, we have overfished, and any of those things makes a good answer for that one. So, ladies and gentlemen, that takes us to the end of your lesson. Make sure you're watching these videos, please. And until next time, I'm Mr. Hescox. I'll be seeing you.